Hey, I'm Jacobs from tdjacobs.com and also healingsuicide.com. And I'm an evolutionary astrologer, also an energy worker and a channel and a medium, do all kinds of healing work. Periodically, I like to do a little video here on the YouTube. And this video is going to be somewhat of a profile, karmic profile, multi-life profile of Bernie Sanders, American senator who's a candidate for president. And I looked at his chart several years ago and got a sense of a couple of things and said, yes, that is his appeal, and this is where people, right? And then recently I looked again with his surge in popularity in the in the race to get the nomination here for one party's presidential nomination here in the. So anyway, so first I'll say that a lot of people seem to expect, or some people seem to expect, every astrologer to be a totally impartial observer like a journalist. I am not. I have strong opinions. And so anyway, so if you are upset if I offer an opinion during this video, you are welcome to go watch other astrologers. I don't read comments on YouTube anymore, so I won't even read your disdain for me because I'm not being objective. I'm objective. I'm a human. So the first thing, I'll share his chart, and first of all, I'll just tell you his birth date. It's easily findable online. September 8th, 1941. No birth time, as far as I can tell, in Brooklyn Heights, New York. So the chart I'm going to pull up doesn't have houses, right? It has the Aries point where the ascendant would be. So let me pull that up. And I just opened his chart in the paint program so I can draw circles to highlight what I'm talking about as you follow along. So when I do a karmic analysis, I do a 4-step story where I talk about Pluto and then the South node, Pluto, house sign and aspects, South node of the moon, the same, and then South node ruler by sign, and then the North node. And that's what I do in Soul's Journey Soundbites and when I teach evolutionary astrology. If you want to learn how I do that karmic analysis, you can subscribe to the Soul's Journey Soundbite database and hear something like 5 or 6 examples of 4-step analyses. Or you can do EA Basics I home study course, Evolutionary Astrology Basics I home study course. Now, what I do, before I get started this, what I do is different than what other evolutionary astrologers do. I did study with Steve Forrest for quite a long time, picked up a couple of tips and tricks and foundational ideas from Jeff Green, but I don't do what they do. So you won't hear about certain things that they may talk about. So anyway, what I do is unique. So the first thing is I circled the South node here in Pisces, and this is what for several years I was thinking, yeah, this is kind of where Sanders comes into that democratic socialism part of it, because in South node in Pisces, you're conditioned in many lifetimes to be aware of the collective, to be aware of what connects all people together, or to be aware of the cosmos or the nature as it connects all of us, or that we're all in this together, or we are all one. These kinds of Neptunian or Piscean principles are really strong with a person with a South node in Pisces. So you're aware, and I was thinking about this the other day when I was looking at this, where does the, we have, here in America, we have all these messed up prejudices about all kinds of political systems that what we do. So when somebody says Bernie Sanders is a democratic socialist, people hear the word socialist and, decades of weird prejudice and fear mongering and all that kind of stuff comes up. Socialist is not the same as democratic socialist. Anyway, just educate yourself if you don't know that. But anyway, when I was thinking about where does that come from, where would a person be inclined towards socialism? And if you look up what it is, you'll find out that it's, an approach that has this kind of egalitarian mindset. Well, South node in Pisces, we are all one. We are all connected. We are all in this together. So I was thinking about that kind of as a place where this comes from, maybe in his karmic conditioning or leaning, right? So he runs as an independent. He caucuses with the Democrats. He votes typically with Democrats in the, here in the Congress in the U.S. But there's that observation of the collective, his awareness of what all kinds of different people go through. So there's a South node in Pisces. I see the world through this lens. And that to me is like the soul knows when you're born as a human, you're going to be helpless and clueless, and you have to be taught how to be human and cared for. So the soul makes agreements with other souls in the cafeteria in heaven is how I think of it. Basically, your soul says, I kind of need this kind of incubator for my multi-life journey. And these other souls in the corner say, we were just talking about doing that to each other. Come be our kid. So I tell people that and they laugh, but that's what's going on. Soul says, I need this kind of training. And these other souls say, yes, we love you. We want to help you. So it becomes this kind of like conditioned starting place in every lifetime. So you're born, and in the minds and hearts are, in Sanders' case, Piscean ideals. We don't have the house, but there's at least this partial description. Piscean ideals of some kind, Piscean ways of things, Piscean motivations, right? We are all connected. We're all in this together. We're merging together, surrendering to the collective, right? And so that's imprinted on his root chakra in every lifetime. So it seems like normal to him. Okay, so there's that. So then I was looking and seeing like, yeah, you know, he's got this like Mars moon together. Let's see, is it? There, moon together. Mars is retrograde in Aries, so part of him might not always know when to fight or what's worth fighting for. This moon could be, you know, six-ish, seven-ish degrees earlier or later. This is a hypothetical noon birth time. So this moon could be at 20, you know, anywhere between, if I can do math, 12 and 26 Aries, right? So if it were at 12 Aries, let's say he were born just after, his moon would be conjunct Eris. And this is why he would be somewhat irritating. Because when people have an active Eris energy, they create stress around them. They trigger others' insecurities, right? And then if that moon is at noon or later, it's conjunct that Mars. And so there you have the kind of fighter spirit, warrior spirit. He is, you know, going to be criticized for his abrasiveness and his anger, not a temper, but just kind of like being gruff and you know, angry. But anyway, those are opposing if that moon is late in the, you know, after the early morning, then that moon and Mars are opposing Venus. So he's trying to get through to people, but there's that defensive thing. So he's trying to get through to people, but still there's fire and there's irritation. The function of Mars is to tell you when something is toxic, and at which point you may need to defend yourself. Just okay. So there's that note. Let's see if I can move this around here. Nope. Okay, so can I just do that? Yeah, I can do that. Okay, good. So I'm gonna kind of skip well, no, I want to talk about the Pluto thing a little bit. It's not where I want to go. I have one thing I'm trying to get to tell you, but I want to kind of picture a little bit. So Pluto for me is the empowerment journey that the soul sets out for the humans in many lifetimes. Like the human selves that are associated with Bernie Sanders' soul. You would say past lives, I say the soul's many lifetimes or the soul's other lifetimes, plus Bernie Sanders. So Pluto says, how can I need to figure out how to do this thing to become strong and confident. Well, Leo involves ego development and being heard, taking up space, claiming a seat at the table, expressing your opinions. Well, his is conjunct Chiron, which says that there's some kind of vulnerability about this. Now, in a room full of people with Pluto and Leo, those with Pluto with Chiron, next to Chiron, want to raise their voice. But like I said, Sanders is trying to get through to people so that Mars, Moon, and Aries come into play. He's trying to get through. He's trying to like explain his rationale for things. And if he comes off as caustic at all, well, you know, then there's a little conflict. But Pluto in Leo, he's not going to be speaking his mind only for ego gratification. I'm not saying he's a saint, but Chiron in there changes the vibration. Chiron is sensitivity to how other people see us. So in certain parts of his life or phases of life, I would imagine when he offers his opinion, people don't care. So then he reverts to his ideology. Okay, so more on that in a minute. Also, by extension, the asteroid Lucifer is here. It's at 13. Chiron's at 942. Pluto's at a little over 5 degrees. So by extension, Lucifer's involved, and that's asteroid, it's a 1930, if you want to look it up in charts. Asteroid number 1930. And forget the Christian mythology of the devil and Satan. Just forget. It's about learning to bring light by developing ego, becoming strong in your egoic self, but critically or crucially, aligning your ego with something bigger than its own enjoyment or pleasure. So not ego stroking or I like being right or I like having the last word, but ego like as a power generator to get things done. So his Pluto-Chiron-Lucifer will sensitize him in certain ways. The Pluto-Chiron will sensitize him to issues about ego and how individuals can feel vulnerable in expressing themselves. The Lucifer thing, he's gonna, at certain phases of life, figure out ideally how to make his egoic style expression, his opinions, serve a higher purpose. Lucifer is always about being of service to a higher purpose. If you want more on that, check out the video I have called, I don't know, just look up Tom Jacobs Lucifer webinar. And it's an hour-long plus presentation, including a snazzy PowerPoint, where I, from a webinar I did a few years ago, and I explained this archetype of mythology and how to deal with it, how to understand it. But don't shame its because of its name. It's about learning to bring light by working towards something bigger than yourself. Being of service. Okay, so there's that. Let's see if I can move this. I do want to talk about his nodes for a minute. That Pisces South that I talked about. What I want to get to here is this business. Okay, let's do that a little bit. Oh, let's actually do that. I want to tell you kind of two little stories. Maybe I need to make this smaller and then tell you two stories. Yeah, let's tell two stories. So the first one is the North Node in Virgo. And that is the need to be discerning, the need to learn how to be discerning, how to make choices that are practical, how to make lists and then rank them, how to be analytical, and how to be of service, how to improve things and fix things, like how to directly through intellectual or hands-on work fix things. So North Node in Virgo says in a bunch of lifetimes, nobody is showing him how to do Virgo energy effectively. He may have negative examples of many lifetimes, like nitpicking or nagging or something like that. You know, think about somebody who's anxious or controlling, but not healthy versions of Virgo. So he's challenged that. Well, there is his sun, the center of his personality, conjunct the North Node. And that means that in his family, people don't know how to show him how to own the power to make change, own the power to change things for the better, to improve things, to fix things. People aren't showing him how to develop a healthy sense of ego, in other words. And think about what I said about the Pluto-Chiron-Lucifer in Leo, same thing. In many lifetimes, he's struggling to figure out what is the right use of ego. So he's challenged to be a Virgo person and learn how to, and not organize his sense of self around negative Virgo, but positive Virgo. How can I improve something? How can I fix something? How can I look at the data and come up with a solution to make things work better, right? So self-confidence is one of the things that he hasn't been shown in many lifetimes. How to stand up and say, let's change this. Remember, well, I didn't say it this way, but people with South Node in Pisces sometimes, well, many of them very often, have this karmic conditioning where they're habituated to not changing things because they've learned that you have to go with the flow or merge or fit in. You have to, adapt to survive. Many people with South Node in Pisces kind of shrug a lot or energetically, right, emotionally shrug or throw their arms up in the air. And if you say to them, do this thing every day for 30 days to make a change, they'll be like, oh, I could never do that. Because they've learned how to give in, how to surrender, how to not take charge of something. And so a lot of times it might actually be critically important for them to learn to go with the flow to survive. To figure out how to go with the flow of the current instead of always struggling against the current. So anyways, he needs to become in some way, maybe not controlling, but discerning and active in a Virgo way. Separately, that sun, actually it's kind of wide to the Eros, I'm not going to count it. But the other side here with the south node, or the north node, is Neptune itself. So the Neptune represents the part of a person's psyche. It is the same as the 12th house or Pisces, the sign of Pisces, but they are part of the same archetypal field, right? They're part of the same archetype. But Neptune itself in a person needs to connect to a higher truth, needs to have a direct experience of something very meaningful, so the person has a sense that life itself is meaningful. So how can he be part of the world? How can he take an active role? How can his psyche be essentially satisfied that, you know, how can he feel like he's part of the fabric of humanity? Well, here it is Virgo, but here it is conjunct the north node in Virgo, so people haven't taught him how to do it. So he would have had to in this lifetime figure out not only that being of service in some way is important to him, or trying to change something or improve something, right? But also that that's where he's going to find a connection with a higher truth, or a sense of spiritual sustenance, one could say. Okay, so there's that. Those are on the north node. He has to figure out those things where nobody's taught him healthy models in many lifetimes. How to be of service. And when you get into that Neptune on the north node, you find a connection to the collective as well. So it's almost like by doing the Virgo path, he kind of completes a circle from the Pisces south node. Yeah, we're all connected. Whoa, I see all the problems. But through the Virgo path, oh, here's how we could fix something or anything. Then I want to shift focus for just a moment and look at this Mercury. This is not part of the karmic story, but just look at this Mercury. It's conjunct Neptune. So it's very intuitive. It's conjunct Juno. So when he speaks, he's committed to what he says, and he's not going to waste a lot of words. I mean, this is what I marked about him in my own head several years ago when he was seeking the nomination for the 2016 election, because he's so I recognize something about him that I resonate with, which is he doesn't like to waste words. Like when I get on a video, I have a lot of words, but in general, I try not to waste words. Sometimes I'm playful, sometimes I'm trying to be eloquent, sometimes I'm trying to be poetic, or I'm writing fiction, so I'm playing with a character or narrative, but I don't like to waste words. I feel that same thing about him, but he's got to go on the campaign trail and repeat himself over and over and over again. And then people are going to misinterpret things or use things again. And then he's got to, anyway, I just see this thing. Juno conjunct Mercury says, I'm only really going to talk if I care about this. I'm committed to what I communicate. But here's the other thing. Vesta is with these two as well at 10 Libra. So the Libra motivation is to reach people. That Mercury is conjunct Neptune says he's thinking about the collective. And the Juno Vesta says, this is really serious to me. Vesta people are taking something very seriously, and they would never do it halfway. So if he's interested in something, like he's not going to talk to you about what flavor Doritos are the best. He's not going to talk to you about the merits of this football team versus that basketball team. He's not going to ever do that because his Mercury is out with Juno and Vesta and Neptune. So he's like focused, this Mercury is focused on trying to get through to a truth. And like I said, Vesta people are sometimes upset with other people or with the world in general, because Vesta people want everyone else to take something seriously. Like, and I use the word sacred. I also use the word devotion when it comes to Vesta. And this is in Libra. There's a thing about justice, social justice. So where does social come from? Wanting people's lives to be better. This is Libran motivation. Okay. So moving on, let me just jump around. I'm not covering all the aspects I could or all the placements, but there's that. Let me, okay. So then this is where I want to go. That circle's really big for this. I'm just going to make that a little smaller, like Bob Ross would. Okay. So, so Ceres. Ceres, actually, his Ceres is square his nodes. It's square the Neptune. Ceres is a dwarf planet. It was upgraded in 2006 from asteroid to dwarf planet. And this was when Eris, that dwarf planet that he has it over at 5 Aries. So when Eris came into the mix and the International Astronomical Union named it and said, you know, if we're gonna treat this as something more than an asteroid, because it can't be an asteroid, so we have to create this new category of dwarf planet. Oh, well, and Eris is about strife and discord, by the way, and pushing people's buttons and revealing insecurities and weaknesses, perceived weaknesses or weakness. So the astronomers are like, well, I mean, Eris, well, we can't have Pluto be a planet because Eris, the Eris changes the definition, so we have to demote Pluto from planet to dwarf planet. And of course, everybody, including you, was like, Pluto's not a planet anymore, now what? I didn't do that because I'm an evolutionary astrologer and I don't care what they say, because I knew it would get changed back eventually, and I think it will. Even as of September 2019, the discussion was leaning toward taking it back to the status of planet for other reasons. Okay, so anyway, so at that same time, when everyone was like, they were like, well, then also Ceres can't be an asteroid, right? It contains, I don't know, some huge percentage of half of the mass of the asteroid or some ridiculous percentage. So it's now a dwarf planet too. So Ceres was promoted, Pluto was demoted. Now they are in equal standing in terms of the astronomers' technical definitions of how to classify a planet. Okay, this is important because I believe Sandra's popularity is a lot of everything I just talked about outside the Pluto bit, but all the things I just talked and the Mars and Aries gruffness, but the other things I talked about, Pisces South Node, Neptune Sun and Virgo on the North Node, the Mercury with Neptune and also Vesta, all these things. Then you have Ceres on the Galactic Center. So Ceres is a dwarf planet that's about nurturing and care. When a person is a Ceres person, first of all, you might think mother, right? And if you're generous and capable of abstract thought, you might say, well, maybe parenting. It's mentoring, parenting, mothering, protecting, providing. So it's whenever you take someone under your wing because that person was just born and they're helpless and clueless, or because the person was injured or sick or needs to be, fostered in some way, or when you have your own children, or you're doing any kind of thing where you are the strong adult figure who is nurturing and caring and protecting and providing. So if you're listening to this and you're like, but I don't have kids, so Ceres isn't relevant for me. Baloney, it's totally relevant for you because of models of care and love toward human self that you learned when you were young and how you approach caring for others now, whether or not you have biological or adopted children or not. So it's not about being a mother. Just want to be really clear. And if you want more on Ceres, I have a playlist on Ceres. This is going to be added to it here on YouTube, but also I'm doing Cerealia, a festival of Ceres. It's a home study channeled course from April 19th to May 2nd. And there's channeled modules every other day with questions to answer, to journal, that will dig into what love is, where it comes from, and who's responsible for giving it to whom in your own life to heal Ceres issues, to heal nurtures, to further your path as a human to become the source of love for yourself, which is what I'm told by discarnate beings every human is here to do. Okay, so Ceres is that I provide, right? It's square the nodes, so he's trying to figure out the right way to do it. Squares of the nodes in my world are not skip, step, or missteps. I do not subscribe to that at all. Everybody asks me that because they assume I'm like a carbon copy of other evolutionary astrologers, but I'm doing something different. The square of the nodes for me is I have this question mark following me around. What's the right way to do this thing? So Ceres in Sagittarius could be under imaginative when it comes to taking care of people, or maybe even over imaginative, right? Over expansive, maybe pie in the sky things. He's criticized for that. But in some lifetimes, he might not try to help people for various reasons. And some lifetimes he might overdo it. So he's trying to find the right way to do this. But here's what I want to get at. this is really about the Galactic Center. I want to tell you all this stuff about how I see his journey, but the Galactic Center is the center of the galaxy. and, and it is a supermassive black hole, is pulsing or pulsating energetic cues, energetic information. When a person has a planet on the Galactic Center, that person seems to be channeling at times, or seems to be aligned with the collective, or sensing what's coming next, that the collective will want and need. So Ceres on the Galactic Center makes his series extremely intuitive. And again, it's not about mothering, so it's not about soft nurturing, it's about providing. It's a form of leadership, the form of let's get rid of all college debt, Medicare for all. He wrote the bill. It's like all this stuff about Ceres themes, taking care of people in our society. And so a lot of people right now, because of his surge in popularity, are saying, oh no, he's the worst choice. He'll, you know, if he gets the nomination, it's 4 more years of this other person, you know, guaranteed, and this fear. Sanders is picking up on stuff in the collective, and he has for a very long time. If you have a planet on the Galactic Center, you're picking up on stuff. So a couple examples. Well, I'll just tell you that you can look up when transiting Saturn a couple years ago, stationed on the Galactic Center. A lot of people I was talking to were having this sense of, what am I doing with my work? This isn't meaningful for me. Saturn, work. Somehow getting this sense of a higher truth. They don't know it, but somehow they're getting this sense of, this doesn't work for me. It isn't authentic. I'm tuning into a higher truth. I need to do some more authentic. I even have a one-time student who expanded her practice and started focusing on that for people, helping people find the right passionate purpose work. She doesn't say it that way, but like how to find the right work for them that's more authentic, right? And at that time, things just started clicking, and she was like, I'm seeing this. And I'm like, yes, Saturn's stationing on the Galactic Center. So there's a sense of truth that can come through even if we don't know it. So you should, I would invite you to monitor transits to the Galactic Center. Now in Sanders' chart, it's at 2602 Sagittarius. It's later now, it's like 27 and change now. It does move. You know, here we are 70 some years later. But the other thing I want to say about the Galactic Center is, it is where the source from which the ancient Mayans channeled the long count calendar, which you would know as the Mayan calendar. There are actually a bunch of calendars within, like nested within each other, that all end in the same date. And people just, because of mass consumption of, you know, glossed over ideas, say Mayan calendar. But the Mayan long count calendar is a series of calendars that all end at the same time. Well, the Galactic Center is where they channeled that information from over a very long period of time. So if you figured out how to, you could channel information from the Galactic Center. If you have a planet at 20 or whatever, 26, 27, or if you monitored transits, every time the moon went over that spot in the chart, you sat down and meditated. Every time Mercury did, three or however many times a year, at least 3, but with retrogrades maybe more, some years. Anyway, you can get a sense of what feels true and resonant. So Sanders, I wouldn't say inadvertently. I'd say that because of these things I'm talking about with service ideas and wanting to be helpful, and this idea of we're all connected, and I need to become empowered through making change, right? Through creating change. And I need to into a role of somebody who makes something better, like those things. In that backdrop, his whole life, he may inadvertently be picking on, quote, what the people need, unquote. So the next time you hear someone using socialism as a bad word, A, remember that Sanders is a democratic socialist. It's not the same thing. But also remember that where it comes from. It's caring about people. And, you know, in my little smart alecky disclaimer at the top where I said I'm not a journalist, I have opinions. Sometimes when I do that, I say, I care about people, I care about our collective, so I tend to, I'm basically a Democrat, right? I don't feel like that, but that's the option I have right now of, do people or do numbers matter? And people matter. So let's figure it out together, and that's kind of that way. So anyway, I think that's the end of this. I just want to point out he's inadvertently sensing what's going on in the world and the collective because of this series on the Galactic Center. And I'll also tell you, Ceres people may identify as nurturing, protective provider figures. Ceres isn't often about receiving that. It's about giving it to others. But how Ceres functions in your life does involve how, when you were young, again, you were modeled care and love. So anyway, check out Cerealia, which is a festival of Ceres from April 19th to May 2nd. Registration opens Friday, March 13th. I'm waiting until after the retro to put the links up on my site. But there's a page, Cerealia, under the healing courses, that has all the info on it. It's a cool process that includes the option for a 20-minute mini reading of a series in your birth chart before the whole thing starts, and then I send it to you a week beforehand. So you have an idea of how I and your guides and Ascended Master Jehudi, Hermes, Thoth, Saint Germain, Merlin, how we kind of see your series path. So when you're doing the channel material that's not specific to you, you have certain themes in mind. So I'm really happy to offer the second year of Cerealia, and thanks for your time and energy, and take care of yourself.